Good evening to all stations on frequency. This is WB6AMT and the Henderson Sunday Night TechNet. Yeah, talking with John about his 3-band vertical antenna, it definitely sounded like something we need to get on the TechNet here. If you have your computer in front of you, and those that are unfamiliar with what we do, we go to the webpage at WB6AMT.com, click on the Heart TechNet up in the upper right-hand corner, and then just kind of roll down to today's date, and we can start in with John's presentation. John, you ready to, I'll just hand it over to you. WB6AMT.
Okay, Earl, I want to thank you very much for putting the page together. It came out good. There's going to be some pictures that you guys will see later. They're kind of blurry. That's my fault on formatting. But two things. It's the HF build, but also part of it is HOA stuff. And trying to utilize whatever you have to the maximum capability that your location, your QTH has, even within an HOA there. So I'm fortunate. My backyard overlooks the valley, so everything I've put up gets out pretty well here. But I'm fortunate in the way it is. If you look, there's two patios, one that's way further back. It's kind of hard to see, and then another little patio, but there's vines on top of a horizontal trellis there. That's my testing grounds. I hang J-poles, Slim Jims. I've strung dipoles across there because it's just easy access. It's wide open. I strap sticks to it to get it up higher, and then test things out with a VNA break-in. Going to picture 2. The next picture, though, that you will see, picture 2, is kind of a picture going across from the side yard to the direct backyard, and you can kind of notice hidden behind those sumac trees or whatever they're called, is a large palm tree that's probably about 35 feet up and needs a severe trimming, but I've always wanted to hang a dipole from that because that would be over a half length above ground for a 20-meter dipole, which should perform very well. But I don't climb ladders and I don't climb trees, so getting up there would be very difficult. So my plan is when they trim the trees, I'm actually going to get a small birdhouse that I will hang pulleys inside of the birdhouse, empty out the floor, and have them strap it to the tree. And that's what I'll use to raise and lower dipoles and verticals in the future. Break. Actually, picture 3 there shows that palm tree even better. So I've been wanting to get something up with this palm tree for over a year to do HF. With COVID and getting somebody over here and between the wife being too busy to get it done, it hasn't happened. And I ordered a 7300, so it was kind of time to get started. Number 4 is another picture of that same palm tree, and you'll notice behind all those bushes in the palm tree is a iron fence on about a 2-foot retaining wall. On the other side of that from my yard is about probably anywhere between 10 to 15 foot straight drop on a retaining wall and slopes down to probably about another 20 feet over to the golf course. So when looking at my yard and what I can do, my questions were, I wanted the dipole, but that wasn't going to get up. I considered a loop, end-fed wire, because I certainly have that fence line, and where all these trees are is about 130 feet. So I have plenty of room to kind of do what I want in that regard. But the best answer came to me was to do a vertical. And thinking about it, my original thought when I was going to do the dipole was a fan dipole. So I said, well, why not a fan vertical? And to get it up, I wasn't going to climb the tree, and what I did was I took a probably 8-inch loop of paracord through a pulley on the top was a swivel. I tied it to that, and then I took a hanger, stuck it in the painter's pole, kind of made a little hook, went about 20 feet up and just hooked the pulley, which had the pulley rope on it, onto just one of those pieces of bark you see sticking out on the palm tree. And I did that on the back side of the palm tree. So that was going to be my raising and lowering mechanism to get it up in the air. So for the base, we'll get to down like to picture number 5 now. You can see what I built. I did took a weatherproof box from Lowe's, and that was the idea also behind this, to build it from stuff I had laying around the house or something I can get from Lowe's or Home Depot that anybody could do. There is the top box, and what I did was I built for the 3 elements, 20, 10, and 6. I put 3/8 number 24 bolts through a piece of copper strap, drilled it in and set them in. And the thought there for me was I was going to mount the elements. If it didn't work or I wanted to change it, that box I could mount on the fence as a base for I could put ham sticks on it, because those are all 3824 threads or 102-inch whip cut down for 10 meters, and use the fence line for the ground plane, or even use raised radials. So when I built this box, it was with that in mind, that it would be kind of versatile. Going to the next picture, where you see the inside of the box. This is where I made a lot of mistakes, to be honest with you. I didn't want to have jumper wires all around. I put 8 terminals for the ground radials on this vertical. And to do that, I just used, again, the copper strapping and just drilled holes through it, and also put in SO39 connector. And there's 2 mistakes when you really look at this box. Number 1 is on the box, you see the little ear on the right with a hole in it. That's where a stake's going to go through. And idiot me put the SO239 on top of the other one. I should have picked another side. But wasn't thinking. And I also put the SO239 connector up too high, so when I drilled through and set it with bolts, it was barely catching the copper strap. So to make sure I had a good connection, I did run 1 jumper wire down to it. So there you see the box. Also, the center connector on the SO239, I tore apart a butt connector, the male end, and I soldered that. I had to widen it a little bit with an AWL, and it slid over the center conductor, and then I firmly soldered that in with a lot of flux, a lot of solder, so it was a firm connection. Because if you look at the first picture, number 5, you'll see the butt connector connected to it. I did it that way, so if you had to service it or anything like that, it would just come apart and break. Picture number 7 shows it completed, and I laid paint on it to kind of match the rock in the planter box. And so the radials are also brown 14 gauge THNN wire. I don't have them going in the grass; they're just in the planter box, spread all over. And we'll see later on some are up on the wall, and I got ground radials all over the place. I think I did a total of 24 ground radials. So yeah, see in number 7, you see it completed with 3/8/24 studs. And the next thing is I built telescopic tubes, which you will see in picture number 8. This copper I had laying around in the house. The first piece is a 1/2-inch connector. Then there's a 1/2-inch piece of copper tubing inside that, and then a 3/8 piece of copper tubing. The 1/2-inch copper tubing I cut 4 slits into when I put in 3/8 with a cap on it, and drilled a hole into it for the wires, which you will see. Going down to the next picture, you can see that what I did was I took 3/8/24 nuts, because they fit in those 1/2-inch connectors, and they fit kind of snug, and I just fluxed those very well and put a bolt in them to hold it steady, and just soldered those in real well so they wouldn't move. Now the purpose of this is that 3/8 piece of copper, and you can see the completed first one set in number 10. You could move the copper up and down. Instead of dropping it all the time to adjust wires for resonance or tuning, I could just move that copper up and down. And ends of the wires were supported by shock cord. A 4-inch loop of shock cord, then to a paracord, then to the element of the wire. That gave me 7 inches of play there. On the bottom, it gave me 3 inches of play. So I had everything fully extended when I put it up, and then I could just adjust the tubes up and down for tuning without having to lower it. Those hose clamps just hold that firmly. I did not use those hose clamps. I got smaller ones from AutoZone for $2 that had like a little key on them, so you could turn it and just hold it snug enough. Right? I guess, is there any questions at this point? Am I getting through okay?
Yeah, you're getting through fine, and I love it so far. Go continue on, John.
The truth is, building that box didn't take that long at all. Probably 15 minutes, 20 minutes, something like that, maybe a half an hour. But in the next picture, the ground radials you'll see, cutting all that wire, then stripping it, putting the connectors on it, and the wire was all curled up from being on the spool. So then it was stretching out the wire, taking the bends out of it, and then I laid them up on top of a lawn chair in the sun for about 3 days, kind of let them straighten out a little bit so they were easier to deal with. Now, those ground radials were each, I believe, 8 ground radials for each of the 3 bands. They're all quarter wave. Wanted to keep it electrical and resonant. I didn't want to use traps or Baluns or anything like that. So there's no Balun here or anything like that. Break. So picture 11, you see some of the radials set out as I was doing them. Now, the next thing was, I was going to hoist it up. What was I going to use? And you guys got to realize this isn't some genius idea of mine. It's also a combination of all the comments and advice I got from a lot of the members here, WB6AMT, W3QQQ, WMIE, NO7Yes. I mean, so many people. Nate, NAPSD, gave me advice on this stuff. And one of them was try to keep the wires away from the tree as far as you can so it doesn't get tuned. Break. So what I did was I built a Halexam Cradle. It's just probably a 12 by 12. It's creased at a 90-degree angle. Think of like a little chair. And as you drag it up, it keeps the wires about a half a foot or about a foot away from the tree. And it also keeps them about where I end up setting it, at about a foot away from the fence line. So it's right in between the two. I used the Lexan, so it was clear and, you really couldn't see it. On the Lexan, I also mounted 2 tennis balls, which I picked kind of the same color as the bark. I riveted those on the back, kind of to cradle the edges of the tree, to hopefully keep it from twisting in the breeze or winds. Break. Looking at picture 12, which really didn't come out good because of the formatting, but you can see the radials kind of at my feet, running through the rocks. And you'll also notice on the feed line, instead of doing in one of those ugly chokes where you start winding stuff up and that kind of thing, I ended up buying a small whip with ferrites on it for HF choke. So that hits the feed line, and then all the radials were spread out along the planter box and over the wall into the golf course. I just kind of threw the radials out there. So in picture number 13, you can actually see as it's raised, you see the elements and you also see the pull rope. And that's it. That was all there was to it. And those 3 wires going straight up was what was allowing me to transmit. What was interesting is when I was doing this, I had the VNA hooked up to it even as I laid out the radials. That was the most time-consuming to do of everything, was laying out the radials. And you can see it on the VNA what was going on and how it was, the more I put down, the better the resonance became. As you can see in picture number 14, after I adjusted the little tubes that I built, 20 meters came down to 1.06. I thought that was wrong because when I first hooked it up, here was another mistake. To the VNA, the readings were so bad, I thought I had something completely screwed up or a short or something. But what it was is, as I was considering it, there was a little jumper wire that I had going from the VNA to the feed line. And I didn't take that out of the equation. So I recalibrated the VNA with that little jumper on it to take it out of the equation, and then lo and behold, this is what I got, 1.06. Picture 15, I think, is whatever that is, 6 meters, I think. It's that one. That picture is, I think, at 1.6. I got it down a little further to that, just under 1.5. So the bottom line is, as far as testing it, all three bands came under 1.5 to 1 SWR.
W7AEN, repeater A2.
So now, considering who can see it, looking at picture number 16, anybody from the HOA rolls by the front of my house, that's the best they're ever going to see. That's from the top of the little hill looking down at my house. They're never going to see it. It's not even up near as high as the tree line there. So you can't see it from the front of the house at all. And when you look at number 17, the trees to my side yard completely block my side neighbor from seeing that. And number 17 is a picture from my yard. So now you can see that cradle and kind of how it holds the elements out away from the tree. My other neighbor would be able to see that, but there's hedges probably and trees about 15 feet on that wall. I don't think they'll see it. And if they do, they're not ever going to say anything. I'm not really worried about that at all. Coming down to the next picture, I went out onto the golf course, and that is the picture, that little wall you see there in picture 19. That little wall is it's a little patio there for the cafe there. And that's about as close as anybody is going to be to seeing that thing. And you really can't. And I don't think they'd complain to my HO anyway, so who cares? And then finally, number 20, that's how I operate. I pull everything out on my patio table. It's basically like a field day operation. The antenna has seemed to perform well. Single sideband I've done all across the country, to the, Florida, Texas, Illinois, let's see, north of Edmonton, Canada, Costa Rica. So it's getting out pretty good. FT8, it's hit, I don't know, I think 13 different countries that I QSO'd or made contacts with. Ireland, England, Chile, Russia, Hawaii, pretty much all over, and it shows on PSK Reporter that it's getting all over the place pretty good. And I haven't really operated it that much, just a few hours on a couple weekends. My signal reports and my audio reports have been very good, and it populates PSK Reporter pretty well. So it seems to be working well. It's the first time I've ever done it, so I really don't have a yardstick to measure by. So I hope I didn't rush through that too much. But that was kind of my thought process of putting something up, hiding it from the HOA, and using what I have to make it happen. And I have to say, I think it worked out pretty good. So I guess if there's any questions or comments, because I've had a lot of advice on it, a lot of help from the club and the club members, and you may see some things in there I can do better, and I'd love to hear it for sure, because these weren't all my ideas. A lot of these are ripped off from the internet. The shock cord idea, I took that from DX Commander, because he builds a vertical and basically does the same thing with the shock cord and the wire element. So not all my ideas, but these ideas, prove to me they do work.
Hey, BSC.
Go ahead, Nate.
Late checking in, excellent talk about it, or TechNet. And could you tell the story about the lawn care guys?
Oh, yeah. I wanted to shoot the gardener. He came by and he did his gardening, which, was nice, and clipped stuff and cut the grass, but then he went with the blower into the planter box where the tree was, and the radials went flying all over the place. So that was aggravating. I had to reset him and let him know, please, I don't even care what's back there. Don't blow your wind blower thing back there. I don't want to do that again. But definitely made the SWR go cattywampus. And just so everybody knows, I was so pleased with how low the SWR was on 20 meters especially, that when I did hook up the 7300 to it, you can use a radio also to check your SWR, and it confirmed also what the VNA said.
QQQ question.
QQQ, go ahead.
Yeah, this is not a criticism, it's just a question. When you have vertical radials like that going up and then back down, kind of sort of next to each other, and I honestly don't know the answer to this question, how, and maybe Tony or Earl might be able to help here, how does that affect the radiation effectiveness? Does it cancel? Can it cancel? Is that a good idea? Or should it be straight up and down vertical? W3QQQ, back to you.
Well, I can tell you it needs to be straight up and down vertical, and the spacing I have between those wires is probably the minimum. It's just like a fan dipole, the spacing you have there. Same concept. When the wind blows, if it moves it around too much, a slight breeze or a little wind doesn't bother it. But if it blows hard enough and those wires are getting close enough to each other, or they cross and the thing gets twisted up, sometimes I have to go and twist it. The SWR goes to hell. The truth is, again, I wanted to use something I could just get from Lowe's or Home Depot. The truth is I should have got a longer, more rectangular box to build this with for better spacing, like over at Keysub, some kind of project box like that. At least that's my thought, but I'll leave it to Earl and Tony, the guys that know.
Yeah, comment, John.
Go ahead, Earl. It's actually your TechNet, buddy.
Well, I'm enjoying it. This is such a great project, and what I really like about it is the fact that you're not having to use a tuner or a pain in the ass to get it to work right. Your longest element is obviously going to be 20 meters. What length did you use? Did that make it from the box up to your Halexam holder up on the tree, or it sounded like Dave's question was it your radials were going up and then coming back down, and from what you described and from what I've seen, it doesn't look like that's the case. Is your longest element making it up to your Halexam and not coming back down?
Okay, this is how I did that, just so you understand the procedure and the way it worked. I laid the box on the patio, and I stretched the elements out. The longest element, obviously, 16.5 feet for 20 meters, roughly. On that wire, I made a loop. I twisted it around itself just a couple times. I didn't want a lot. And then I secured that with zip ties. So I had the solid loop on it. And then I put a 4-inch loop of shock cord on it, which I laid the Halexam down also on the patio. And I tied it with the 4-inch loop of shock cord so it had stretch. Then I went to 10 meters, and I did the same thing with the elements. Tied it, made a loop at the right length, secured it with zip ties. I then tied a 4-inch loop, same size loop of shock cord to the piece of Halexam. And then between the elements and the shock cord, I used some paracord and connected the shock cord to the element. So it was the exact same length as 20 meters, as the 20-meter element with the shock cord. So this way everything was even. And then I did the same thing with 6. So the wires do not go back down upon themselves. They're just straight up vertical.
Yeah, thank you, John. I think that pretty much answered Dave's question. It sounds like he was under the understanding that the elements were a lot longer than they are. Again, good project. I think this is going to be. I think several people will probably be doing something like this similar, and I can't wait to hear your report after you try some of the ham sticks or hustler antennas or any of the other mobile types that have 3/8 by 24 thread on it. KJ7OEN WB6AMT.
Question.
Go ahead.
Hey, John, KJ7BBA. The radials, are they all the same length, or are they different lengths for different bands? And how did you determine how many you needed?
Well, I modeled the antenna, number one. And number two, a lot of research on the internet. DX Commander Cal is like the guru of vertical. And his thing is somewhere anywhere between 16 and 32 radials. And you're better off with more shorter ones than you are longer ones, so the theory goes. So what I did was, if you look at the box, there's two junction points for radials on each side. So that's a total of 8. And so for every one of those, and it's just a wing nut, I took a quarter. Every one of those has a quarter wavelength for each band on it. So 3 times 8, whatever that is, 24 radials. And I think I may have thrown another set on there that I threw over the wall. Just to see what would happen, and laid a couple of those on the wall, and they actually helped with the SWR, believe it or not. So I don't know. It's just I just went by what readings were on the test equipment to do that. But all the radials are a quarter wave. So in other words, on one of those little screws with a wing nut, there's going to be a quarter wave 6, a quarter wave 10, and a quarter wave 20, and they go in along one direction along the planner, and the next one I laid next to that, and then the last one up against the back, and so on and so forth, keeping them as straight as I could.
Okay, Roger. So there's one feed line to the box, and then just through natural resonance, the transmission goes through the proper length of wire, both radial and vertical.
Correct. That's the theory. I mean, those radials, when they hit the ground, they're kind of tuned as it is. So I actually, I believe it's actually going maybe through all of those, maybe not. If it's resonant, yeah, it should just be hitting that line, and that's all. That's just the magic of it, just like a fan dipole.
Very good. It's just beautiful. Great job. All right, back to you, John. KJ7BBA.
John, comment WB6AMT. Go ahead, Earl. Looking at the box, I accidentally clicked here and lost my page. I got to get back to it. Picture number, I think it was 8. Excuse me, not 8. Number 6. You can see that mounting lug that you were talking about. You didn't mention it, so I don't know if you are how you keep the box down. But Harbor Freight has these 12-inch. At least 12-inch long giant nails with a plastic hook on the end. They're tent pegs, replacement tent pegs. One of those, pounding in at that big lug there, would hold the box down nice and tight and would help keep your line straight. Are you just relying on the ground radials to hold the box down?
No, negative. I actually bought some kind of like tent stakes, similar to exactly what you're mentioning, Earl. They were rather long. I got them at Lowe's. They kind of had a hook on them. They were too long. It was getting to the roots of the palm tree, but I just kind of snapped them a little bit shorter and kind of put a point on them, and I banged them through the holes on that box, and that's what's holding it down.
Okay, thank you very much. WB6AMT.
And QQQ, question?
Go ahead, Q.
W3QQQ. Okay, so to be clear, and this is what I misinterpreted, up in the pure thing you have up there, they don't go, one of the radios doesn't go and then loop electrically to the other one and then back down. They're all independent, correct?
Correct. And so in other words, when I lift that up, I wanted every line to be the same size. So I would use the paracord and then the shock cord to equalize everything between the bands. They are absolutely separate all the way to the top. So when I raised it until there was just some good tension on those wires. And then when I plugged in the DNA, then I just started moving the tubes up and down to get it to where I wanted, so I didn't have to lower it and trim wire, etc. To me, that was kind of the important thing. I didn't want to be. You got to remember something. I just hooked that pulley on a piece of bark. Eventually, it's going to break and come down, and I'm going to have to redo it. So the last thing I wanted to do is put all kinds of stress on it. And that was the idea of using those slider tubes and the shock cord.
Okay. It was, as usual, my confusion. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you. W3QQQ, back to you.
One more question.
Go ahead.
Hey, John, KJ7BBA, the three verticals that you have there, so electrically they're the appropriate length, and you just make the difference up in the non-electrical part, which would be the paracord and the shock cord. Have you considered standoffs between the verticals, non-conducting standoffs, at every, several feet, so that they don't swing into each other?
I did consider it like you do with a Mark. That's a good question. I did consider it, just like you would do a fan dipole. The reason I didn't do it is because with the box anchored and the cradle up above, the spacing stayed the same. Even if I had spacers on it, if the wind blows hard enough and it kind of spins the cradle, which happens from time to time, even with the spacer, I'm going to have to go untangle or, go unwind it, or all I do is I lower it like a half a foot and just spin it back around and then yank it back up. And that's all I have to do to get it undone. But if it turned on itself, even with a spacer, it would lose everything anyway. So they're stretched taut enough that they maintain the space. It hasn't been an issue.
All right, thank you for that. Back to you.
Okay, well, thank you, John. It was an excellent presentation. The pictures helped tremendously, and in case anybody is thinking about it, they're almost, this is like one half of a fan dipole. I use a fan dipole here, an Alpha Delta DXEE, which is a 40 meters through 10, and it has 3 wires at various lengths. And I think for 40, I think there's actually a trap on the longer one. But here's a good example of doing what you've got with what you've got in your backyard. This will make an excellent portable antenna to where you could take it up on a mountain for field day, or not field day, but like parks on the air and things like that when you're just operating portable. And just chuck it up into a tree and pull it up, raise it up. So good job, 100%. WB6AMT. Anyone else with questions or comments for John? Go ahead and take the mic.
I have one more question, BBA.
Go ahead, Mark.
Go ahead.
This is just regarding an HF antenna in general. What would be preferred, a vertically polarized or a horizontally polarized HF antenna? What's the advantage of one over the other, if there is one? I don't know if John has been researching that, or maybe Earl or someone else, but I give it back to Earl to direct KJ7BBA.
Okay, well, I'll just put in a couple of cents worth here. The nice thing about horizontal antenna versus a vertical antenna is you're going to have a lower noise floor. My noise floor currently on my vertical antenna, which is a 6 through 80 meter CH250B, runs constantly between 7 and 8 S meter, S7, S8. With my dipole, it drops down to an S2. So, and I think you're going to probably find more people horizontally polarized out there, dipoles than verticals. But, that could be a bad statement too. That's my 2 cents. Anybody else wish to comment on that? By all means, pick up the mic. WB6AMT.
I can comment a little bit on that from my research, but I don't have personal experience to say. But from research, the vertical is going to have a lower takeoff angle, which is supposed to get you more distance. But that also depends. If you get the dipole up at least a half a wavelength off the ground that you're utilizing, that you're transmitting on, I think the dipole is superior, as Earl said. It's a much quieter antenna, and your bandwidth, I believe, tends to be better with it across the band. At least that's my understanding. I mean, as soon as I can get, what I decided to do was strap a birdhouse on it once they get it trimmed, and I'll hang the pulleys from the damn birdhouse. This way, an HOA really can't say too much. And if I get it up there high enough. I'm well above a half a length on 20 meters, and that would be my preference. I can tell you with this vertical, at least on 20 meters, my noise floor is under S2.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Back to you, Earl.
Okay, that sounds like a home run to me. John, have a good evening. All the other stations, thank you for your participation tonight. WB6AMT releasing the Henderson Amateur Radio Club's repeater network back to normal use. WB6AMT.
This has been a production for the Hark Amateur Radio Repeater System. Post-production by W3. Copyright 2021. All rights reserved.